Let's make an iron oxide wash to accentuate the foot of my pot. Hi, I'm Kent. A while ago, I was working on some new shape cast molds, in particular this one here. I went and modified the original shape cast mold to add this decorative foot, and I've had some pots make it all the way through the bisque fire, so I want to go ahead and glaze them. Someone had asked how I was going to glaze these, and my intention all along was to actually go ahead and make an iron wash to make this stand out more. And since I've been making my molds from print straight off the printer, it might be hard to see, but there's a faint hint of the layer lines. So I think it might be fun to apply the iron wash to the outside of the pot as well and accentuate that feature. And I'll be using a translucent white glaze over the top. So to start, we need to make the iron wash. Recipe simple. It's basically iron oxide and water. Should be enough. This red iron oxide definitely loves to stain everything, so it should do a good job staining the pots. Just add some water. A little stir stick here. I want to get things fully hydrated. All right, I'll go ahead and let this sit for a few minutes and we'll mix it a few more times. And in the meantime, we can go ahead and mix up the glaze. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. This is Old Ford Creations First 5 base glaze, but I've added some white to it. In particular, I've added 6% by dry weight of zirconium. So that will act as an opacifier, but also give it the white hue. And this has been sitting around for months now. So it's fully separated out. So I need to give this a good mix, and I'll just use my paddle mixer for that. All right, that's an initial mix. I'll go ahead and mix it again before we use it, but it's now back into glaze state. Added a little bit more water to the iron oxide, and this is looking pretty good. This should be pretty straightforward. I was going to take a brush and go ahead and brush some on, and I think I'll do the walls of the pot as well. And try not to get my hands. And then we'll sponge it back with an old sponge. This is definitely going to get stained. Might need to dilute this out a little bit more, but I'll start here. All right, doesn't need to be perfect, so we're going to take a sponge and that will spread things around as well. Just going to do this over my bucket here. All right, there's the first one. This is pretty heavy. And kind of see some of those layer lines. Let's dilute it out a little bit more and try that. I'll go a little bit lighter and see how that works. I spread it around and remove some of it using the sponge. That one's definitely a less aggressive application. I have this pot as well, and this one was my first attempt at trying to put a design in the foot, and I didn't quite like it. However, I think with the iron wash it'll definitely make it pop. Something like that. All right, let me go ahead off camera and do a few more. Here we go. Here are a bunch from heavy applications down to ones that are more light. And I went and did this design as well. This one has the curvy bottom, and I did it more as a gradient. So it's applied heavier towards the foot and lighter towards the top. All of these have picked up some water, so I'm going to go ahead and let them dry out for a while before we apply the glaze. That way it doesn't mess with the glaze application and the bisque's ability to suck in the water. And the iron oxide wash, I can go ahead and put a lid on and label, and I can use this again in the future. These have all dried out. So let's go ahead and mix the glaze up again. So while we're experimenting, let's go ahead and try a couple different glaze applications. I think for these two, I'm just going to go ahead and dip them all the way, and then we'll wipe the bottoms. That means we'll have glaze down in the recess, but I'll be able to wipe off the surface for both of these. So give the tongs a quick dip. All right, I'll set it off to the side. I'll do this one. And for these, I'm going to put the glaze on in 2 steps. First, we'll do the liner glaze, and then we'll dip the outside. All right, there goes step 1. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry out again since the bisque has now absorbed the water from the inside. And for these two, I want to go ahead and let the glaze sit up a little bit before I sponge the bottoms. Now I can dip these in the glaze. And the reason I want to dip them is I don't want to have to wipe the bottoms for these in particular. I'm just going to gently lower it in. I'm going to try and get glaze all the way down to this lip right here, which I built into the design on purpose. So we're going to have a little bit of contamination of the glaze. I can fish that out, I think. And this is the one in particular I don't have to try and wipe off. All right, and I skimmed the surface off, so don't have too much iron oxide in there. This one here, I think I'm going to leave raw. I haven't done a raw clay application for a while, so that one's basically done. So that leaves these two here. And we need to clean the foot off enough so it doesn't stick to the kiln shelf. There we go, something like that. Basically the bottom level and the one down I've wiped off, and I have glaze on just the middle. That should be good. And same for this one, but there's actually a bigger recess here. I really should only need to get this lip. There we go, half a dozen pots. I'll probably do a little bit more touch up on these, load them into my glaze kiln, and we'll see how they turn out. We had a good glaze firing, and we got some interesting results. Here are the pots. I think the first thing that's pretty obvious is that this glaze is less translucent than I thought. Even where we had the iron wash on the sides of the pots, the glaze mostly covered it up, except for the heaviest ones. So here you can see a little bit just peeking through. So I think that was an interesting result. If I want to showcase the walls of the pots, then I definitely need to modify my glaze a little bit more, make it more translucent. I'm really liking the raw clay application here. I think this is really cool. I used to do more of these and I haven't done one in quite a while, so I think this is fun. I could probably be a little bit more even with the wash application, but overall this is the effect I was going for. And I think the foot came out really well. This is close to what I had envisioned. And I think this one's even better. Just has this nice kind of rustic look going with it. And you can see a little bit of the iron wash poking through at the bottom. These were my original design in terms of the foot, and the wash definitely did accentuate the foot itself. I'm still not in love with this design, so I'm not too sure if I'll make more of these or not, but it was a good test to do. And these are the last two where I actually glazed the foot as well. So for this one, the glaze kind of got in the quarters, and there's still a little bit of iron wash, but most of it got wiped off when I wiped off the glaze. And kind of this little center section here is glazed, but it's kind of lacking a little bit of symmetry for me. So I'm not too sure I will do that again. And for this one, there's more of the iron wash kind of poking through. It was heavier down in the valleys, but I think the glaze itself kind of muddies up the foot. It's all right, but I do think a raw application here would also be good. So overall, I'm going to call that a successful test. And I'm sure there are other finishes you could do to the foot as well, leveraging this pattern design. I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks.